So real fast, shout out to Trags on Twitter for posting this. But this is, of course, our offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, talking about how Joe Burrow was leading the offense on and off the field during training camp and this offseason so far. Obviously, most of the offseason, Joe has dealt with injury with his calf strain of pretty much until early August till now. So he still has been a leader on and off the field. Let's go ahead and listen up what our man's has to say about this.
He's been way more vocal this year in general, from the start of the offseason program until through training camp. He's still involved in all that stuff. He coaches pretty actively now, probably more than he ever has. He is not afraid to speak up. Now, it's not like he's talking the whole time. He's very selective with, as you guys know, with what he says and how he says it, and so it lands with maximum impact when he has something to say. In the quarterback meetings, he's been the same guy the whole time. He's fun to listen to, and he's got a lot of opinions about how things should look and we listen to him, and that's kind of what makes, I think, our setup pretty unique. So I've seen a growth in the meeting room process from him this year in general. That's been pretty cool.
How exciting is that?
We'll do a side note here. That just shows how much of a leader he actually is. And as Coach said here, he's slowly getting better at that. Like this year he's done this more than every year in the past, which shows he's growing as a leader. Listen, not everyone but goes from, not a leader to a leader, right? Now, Joe has always had these characteristics, whether he was in college at LSU or Ohio State, or he is in the NFL. He is a leader. He is the alpha male. He is what we call the Chad of, he's the big Chad here, right? So it's not surprising to hear this, but it's awesome to hear him continuing to get more into his leadership role and really taking over this team. Because at the end of the day, the only way this team's going to win a Super Bowl, right, is through number 9. And number 9, keeping this team, cool, calm, collect, really having that kind of generalized figure they could all look toward and really respect / want to make sure that, they're doing everything perfect. That's how you keep a team on track, right? It happens all the time that teams, they kind of things fall off, things get a little crazy, there's drama, sometimes the locker room gets split because of that. It's a mess. So having that leader, as in Joe Burrow, to sit there and say, nope, we're not doing like this, we're doing like this, and to hear that he's getting more, he's more speaking up more, and he's more vocal, is absolutely amazing. And as Coach said here, yes, he doesn't talk all the time. If you've seen Joe in any press conferences, if you've seen Joe, in any type of media, he's very soft-spoken, right? He doesn't talk as much as other people do, right? But as Coach said here, when he does talk, it's meaningful. Meaning that, he's not going to sit there and criticize you for left, right, and the center, right? And that's something that, even Hayden Hurst, an ex-Cincinnati Bengal, he actually said that about, what he liked about Joe Burrow. He was connecting it and saying that that's exactly how Bryce Young is, beside the point. But he was saying that's what he loved about Joe Burrow was how Joe Burrow isn't a guy who gets in your face and starts screaming. He's not a guy who criticizes you, who nitpicks you. He's a guy who says, hey, listen, this is what I see you doing wrong, and this is how I want you to correct it. And because of that, and he's so respectful and he's a good leader with it, it makes everyone around him want to listen and want to do better, right? Because at the end of the day, you're like, okay, what he's saying is true, and I don't feel like he's attacking me. I feel like he's just trying to help me out. So even though he's injured, he's still being vocal with the players on the field. This is actually another thing we heard from Irv Smith, actually. Irv Smith said, yes, he's not able to play with Burrow, well, obviously before he came back from injury, but he said that he was still very vocal with Burrow, sitting down with him, talking with him, going over things. And I'll be honest with you, one day we might see Joe Burrow become a coach. I don't know if he'll become a coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a possibility. But he's going to become a coach somewhere. Because as I'm hearing more and more from, obviously, our coach here, Brian Callahan, or hearing from other sources, it seems like Burrow's really getting into that, true leader / kind of mentor role for a lot of these younger players. And that's the type of stuff that we eventually see, a coach really become. But let's go ahead and listen to the rest of this, though, and kind of get my thoughts on the rest of this.
General, that's been pretty cool.
How exciting is that to kind of see that go for?
Oh, it's great. I mean, as a coach, it's, I think as a coach, you're always hoping to be able to just sort of fade back and let the players take control of it all. And that's, when you got a good team, it's usually what happens. And, he's gotten to that point in his career where he's very confident in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and his role in it. And that's pretty fun for a coach to be able to do that.
Exactly what I was just mentioning is, yeah, he's pretty much the coach on the field. And I do agree with Brian Callahan there. It's like, at the end of the day, as a coach, your job is not to be a babysitter, right? Your job is not to sit there and you want to make sure your players play good and, are like disciplined and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, your job is to call crazy plays that are going to get you touchdowns, right? Call offensive schemes that moves the ball. Help this offense function and operate at a high level. But at the end of the day, the players are the one who execute those plays. And having, again, like I said, a leader on the field that everyone can kind of like, generate around and see, okay, that guy right there, he's going to hold me accountable. That's better than anything. Because while, yes, coaches are amazing, at the end of the day, we have seen so many times where a coach, even though they're a great coach, Pete Carroll, for example, with Seattle Seahawks, when they lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots, that locker room was split. It was divided because there was no leader in that locker room. Russell Wilson was on one side and the Legion of Boom was on the other side with Marshawn Lynch, because the Legion of Boom believed that they forced that throw to give, Russell Wilson the MVP award. And because there was no leader in that locker room to stand up, walk in front and say, no, guys, I don't care what you think. This is what happened. This is how we're going to get over it. And we're going to get right back to it. There was no leader. And the coach, while Pete Carroll tried, he's more of a player's coach. He tried to, help out. The coach can only do so much at the end of the day, right? These players are looking at the coach saying, you're a coach, you're not a player. You're not in my shoes. You don't know how I feel, what I'm doing, or what I should or shouldn't be doing. Then if you have a player who is on that team, who's a veteran, who's a leader, who's, a real, as I would say, again, a Giga Chad for, Joe Burrow, you have a guy who's going to step up and say, and everyone looks at him and says, you are in my shoes. You are a player too. You know what I'm going through. And you are making perfect sense. So I believe what you're saying, and I want to follow you. And I think that's what we've seen for this whole entire team. Everyone's following behind Joe. Everyone is ready for, to win a Super Bowl with Joe. Everyone is looking at Joe like, you are the guy that's going to take us to the promised land. And you got to love it, man. That's why I love Joe. And again, as he said before, well, as I say, as Bengals have said before, the Super Bowl window is open for his whole entire career. And that's not a joke. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.